Malignity is melodramatically defined as causing or intending to cause harm or evil. Shakespeare's As You Like It is generally thought of as a light-hearted comedy, with the fun of Rosalind's disguise and her adeptness with language, the complex intrigue of the different love plots, and the multiple weddings at the end of the play. Nonetheless, the more relaxed atmosphere of the Forest of Arden contrasts sharply with the mood of the opening sections of the play, set in the court ruled by the usurping tyrant Duke Frederick. Jealousy, paranoia and open malignity abound in Duke Frederick's court, and it is set against this world of tyranny and injustice that the Forest of Arden seems idyllic in comparison. And so this essay will explore the malignity that exists in the early stages of As You Like It and compare it with the malignity in 3 of George Eliot's works, Silas Marner, Adam Bede and The Mill on the Floss. Although the relatively straightforward villainy of Duke Frederick and Oliver from As You Like It is present in Eliot, for example in the character of Dunstan Cass in Silas Marner, this essay will argue that a more subtle, largely hidden but equally pervasive malignity is present in Eliot's novels, and it is a malignity that invariably has catastrophic consequences. So stay tuned, you're watching Schofield on Shakespeare. Act 1 of As You Like It is notable for the open hostility and malignity that exists between not one, but 2 sets of brothers. For one pair of brothers, Duke Senior and Duke Frederick, the key act of aggression has already taken place, leaving Duke Frederick newly in command and his brother exiled to the Forest of Arden. However, for the other pair of brothers, the hostility is played out live on stage in the very first scene of the play. Oliver is the eldest son of the deceased Sir Roland de Boys, and Orlando is the youngest. Sir Roland's will indicated that Orlando should be given a good education and contain the implicit expectation that he should be brought up as a gentleman. However, Oliver's opening lines to Orlando very clearly indicate the contempt in which he holds him. He questions his brother abruptly and dismissively. "Now, sir, what make you here? And what mar you then, sir?" The use of sir is deliberately sneering and overly formal to confirm the unnaturally large emotional gulf between them, whilst the content of the question suggests that Oliver can't bear being near his brother, and that being in his very presence is jarring and spoils or mars his day. Kenneth Branagh's 2006 film of the play, set rather bizarrely and indulgently in 19th century Japan, sets this scene at night in the pouring rain, and the hostility between the brothers is unmistakable. Look at Oliver's intimidating walk towards his Orlando, the fixed eye contact, the bitter emphasis of words.
What make you here?
Nothing. I am not taught to make anything.
Know you where you are, sir?
Oh, sir, very well.
Know you before whom, sir?
Aye. Better than him I am before knows me.
Shakespeare and Branagh give Oliver a soliloquy at the end of Act 1, Scene 1, so he can reveal the extent of his hostility towards his brother and why he might feel this way. He confides in the audience,
"I hope I shall see an end of him. For my soul, yet I know not why, hates nothing more than he."
So Oliver desires the death of his brother, who he abhors more than anyone in the world. There is a sense that this is an irrational wish, as Oliver himself acknowledges in the subordinate phrase, "Yet I know not why." But it soon becomes clear that these malign thoughts are provoked by jealousy and the consciousness that actually his perfect little brother has a lot of good qualities.
Yet he's gentle. never schooled, and yet learned, full of noble device. And so much in the heart of my own people who best know him, that I am altogether misprized.
Oliver may be wishing evil by desiring the death of a noble brother, but he does at least show he is a good judge of character. He can recognise goodness and grasp his brother's innate intelligence in spite of him being denied a gentleman's education. The problem is that he feels threatened by these good qualities, his brother's magnetic appeal to the masses, and is not secure enough in himself to love and value them. He feels he needs to crush and destroy them in order that his own qualities are given the appreciation he feels they deserve. And so Oliver orders for Orlando's lodgings to be burnt to the ground, in the hope that his brother's life will be extinguished in a most painful and gruesome way. Orlando is tipped off about this plan, but is left to flee for an uncertain life away from his family home. And so, in As You Like It, malignity results in a decent younger brother having to flee for his life to survive. But Orlando is not the only one left to an uncertain future by the cruelty of a family member. In Act 1, Scene 3, Duke Frederick, who previously had let his niece remain in the court to keep his own daughter company, abruptly addresses Rosaline thus:
Mistress, dispatch you with your safest haste and get you from our court.
The two imperatives, dispatch and get, are ungentlemanly direct and totally unforeseen by the vulnerable young niece. And just as Oliver has the flimsiest reasons for turning against his brother beyond selfish jealousy, so Duke Frederick's motivation seems similar. Rosaline repeatedly questions the logic of her banishment and points out that
never so much as in a thought unborn did I offend your highness.
her uncle's response is cynical and unconvincing. He replies, "Thus do all traitors. If their purgation did consist in words, they are as innocent as grace itself. Let it suffice thee that I trust thee not." Purgation is the action of clearing oneself of an accusation or suspicion of crime or guilt. And so Duke Frederick's argument is that all traitors are able to speak plausibly to defend themselves. But persuasive use of language cannot be relied upon as proof of innocence. While there may be some truth in this, it doesn't change the fact that there is no evidence whatsoever of Rosaline plotting against him, leading the audience to condemn Duke Frederick as a paranoid, deeply immoral man who will act evilly on a whim and a thought. For there is a crucial difference between effectively banishing Orlando, as Oliver does by plotting to burn down his lodgings, and the exile of Rosaline, and this is the different sex of the two. As a woman, Rosaline is far more vulnerable, sent away from home and family on a long, potentially perilous journey. She herself recognises this when she confides in her cousin Celia.
Alas, what danger will it be to us, maids as we are, to travel forth so far?
In Shakespeare's original, Rosaline continues by saying, "Beauty provoketh thieves sooner than gold." These lines hint that as a young woman, both Celia and Rosaline are at additional risk of rape from the physically stronger male sex. In fact, Rosaline's words about the relative priorities of thieves indicate that a sexual attack can potentially provide more fulfillment than financial gain. Within this context, Duke Frederick's malignity is all the more shocking. His behaviour doesn't just treat his niece with utter contempt, but potentially puts her very life and sacred chastity at risk. There is no question that Duke Frederick's actions are highly reprehensible, but there is at least one thing to say in favour of them. He tells Rosaline her brutally unfair fate directly and openly. She is not left to discover trauma and disaster through the words of someone else or by future consequences, but is instead allowed the opportunity to make some kind of life for herself elsewhere. What a contrast to the malignity of the ghastly wannabe populist yet weak as hell Arthur Donnithorne in Adam Bede. He, like Duke Frederick, is a man of power and influence within his community. However, unlike Duke Frederick, he is determined that everyone should like, look up to and respect him. To be popular is as important to Arthur's well-being as the fundamental need of all mammals to inhale oxygen to breathe. In chapter 13, the narrator describes his thoughts on creating a scandal by an affair with a local girl way below him in status and class. He should hate himself if he made a scandal of that sort on the estate that was to be his own someday and among tenants by whom he liked above all to be respected. He could no more believe that he should so fall in his own esteem that he should break both his legs and go on crutches all the rest of his life. In other words, Arthur's self-esteem is tied inexorably to how other people view him, particularly those socially inferior to him and those for whom he will one day become their landlords. In fact, not being well regarded would feel to him as crippling as being unable to walk unsupported. And remember, Arthur is a young man, someone who relishes his own physical fitness. Now, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be popular. Most of us, given the choice, would consistently choose being popular and well-liked ahead of being detested and shunned. However, what is most uncomfortable about Arthur Donnithorne is that his desire to be liked seems to take precedence over everything else in his character and is symptomatic of a moral weakness that elevates appearance ahead of substance, that promotes the easy decision ahead of the right one. Whereas Duke Frederick and Oliver are openly and directly malign, Arthur Donnithorne is unwittingly and passively malign, with disastrous consequences for Hetty Sorrel. He weakly continues his affair with her, knowing all the time that it can only cause harm, much more so to Hetty than himself. The narrator reveals his inability to be open and decisive. It seems he couldn't quite depend on his own resolution, as he thought he could. There was no knowing what impulse might seize him tomorrow in this confounded place when there was nothing to occupy him imperiously through the lifelong day. Eliot's adverb imperiously is revealing. Arthur Donnithorne, the heir to his grandfather's estate and therefore soon to be all-powerful landlord, needs to have tasks to do which involve being obeyed. He has no need financially to work, but must be involved in something which soothes his ego and allow him to perpetuate his own self-image as a benign landowner in waiting. Without this distraction, he passively continues his affair with a hugely impressionable and only 17-year-old Hetty Sorrel, a ticking time bomb of an affair that only ends when he is half found out by a man who previously looked up to him, Adam Bede.